Welcome back to World Crisis Radio, and this is Mr. Tarpley speaking from New York City, once again on the eve here of the Left Forum, and we're going to have that opening plenary session, Syriza, Podemos, Left Bloc, and the Left. Will there be a European revolutionary politics? But let's go to the man who actually has the answers, and that is our good friend Michael Chiotinis in Athens, the guy who has been right so many times on forecasting these events in a very hectic and turbulent pattern, but he's been able to see clearly through all that stuff. So, Michael, welcome. Give us the rundown on what's going on in your part of the world.
Hello, Webster. And in view of the Left Forum in New York, the first thing, there's much to talk about, and many things are happening, but in view of the Left Forum, I want to give a few important points first. Things that the new Greek government has already managed to do in the very short period that's been in power, because someone could think that nothing has been done, and then we're going to talk about the negotiations and all the emergency stuff, and so
great. You have the floor.
A few short points. Number one, the new Greek government has passed a law for emergency spending having to do with the humanitarian crisis, the poor and the homeless. Still limited because of the very tight budget, but passed in a way that can be expanded with a simple decision from the minister who's in charge of this. Number two, a law was passed to save the debt-ridden Hellenic sugar industry, the most significant industry having to do with agriculture in the entire country, which was ready to shut down. If we had the old government, right now it wouldn't work, it wouldn't operate, and the new Greek government saved it. 7,000 growers depend on this industry for their income, so that's very important. It has to do with production itself. Also, the new Greek government passed a law allowing people who have debts towards the government, taxes that they have been unable to pay, to come to a deal involving up to 100 installments. This made debtors who had trouble doing business restart business, and because of legal issues, legal matters having to do with being in debt, and also boosted government revenue because people started paying even small installments. And this revenue, in this time that the government was in dire need in order to improve its negotiating position, was very important, let me tell you.
Good.
So the lenders of Greece may have tried to stall everything in order to discredit the new government. But the very important things got done, even in this asphyxiating climate. Now, whatever is the outcome of this negotiation, the message has to be that politics can beat the markets. Politics are the way to go. And I'm telling this again, in view of the Left Forum, don't get locked in yourself, in your personal problems. Get out there, get active, fight for what you think is right. But first of all, have an opinion. Be prepared to answer the question, what kind of a society do you want? Because what we're facing right now in the West is the attempt to transform us in the West into a new kind of sweatshop economy, into new sweatshop economies. And that is, I think, the big danger if one looks at the big picture, you know. And don't kid yourselves thinking it's far away, because it is in Greece right now. It's at your doorstep. This kind of a world and this kind of a society is closer than you may think, wherever you are in the West. If they catch you unprepared, if they find you without the proper intellectual readiness to think, the mental capacity to fight back, believe me, change can come very fast. Just look at how the Greek economy was completely transformed and the Greek society completely, utterly destroyed in, 5 short years. If Greece falls into this for good, there is no stop to where this neoliberal, neo-feudal nightmare could spread to. Now, Greece and its lenders are still in the process of negotiations. That's the situation, I'm afraid, as it has been for the last 4 months. The difference now is that Greece is running out of money to service debt that is due. Until now, it only had repayments to do to the IMF, and it has made their payments with money squeezed out of the budget without imposing any new austerity, and that's phenomenal if you think about it. Part of it has to do with the law I just talked about installments. The problem is, June 5th, Greece has 300 million euros in debt repayments it has to give to the IMF, and roughly a total of 1.3 billion until the end of June. The Greek government says that it doesn't have the money needed to both make the payments and still have money to pay salaries and pensions. So there's either going to be some kind of a deal very soon, or Greece is going to default on the IMF. No one has any idea what a Greek default could trigger, so it's a game of chicken right now, with the side of the lenders thinking they can blackmail. But what I'm seeing right now today is that this final moment where things get extreme and Greece seems like it is ready to default, to actually default. Some of the people representing the lenders, in a wider sense, they are becoming increasingly aggressive, like Schäuble and Lagarde. And while others finally have the good sense to say to the IMF and to the European Commission and to the European Central Bank, what the hell are you doing? Stop pressuring and put an end to austerity. It has failed. We are starting to see that they are being scared by all this, by what a Greek default could trigger. Mr. Constancio, I read today, he's the vice president of the European Central Bank, says, I'm convinced that Greece won't exit the euro. It is difficult to build up, that's a quote, it is difficult to build up a narrative where that extreme case can happen. And he's saying this in a climate of rupture in the negotiations, of the IMF asking crazy stuff. The negotiations are, Tsipras, the Prime Minister of Greece, is trying to get the negotiation up to a political level, because in the level of technical staff, things are stalled. Now, that's it.
Michael, will you just hang on a minute? Now, we were hoping that Reverend Pinckney would call in, but it's getting rather late in the afternoon, and maybe we won't be able to hang with us. Maybe we can give you another segment. I'd really like to, on the same line that you're going through, okay? Hang on 1 second. We'll be back in a minute on World Crisis Radio. Welcome back to World Crisis Radio, Webster Tarpley here in New York City. We're on with Michael Chiotinis in Athens, and we had been hoping for Reverend Pinckney to call in, but it looks like the authorities of the police state of Michigan and Governor Snyder have prevented that from happening. But I think we just bear in mind that question about the Italian unions in a general strike against Whirlpool on the 12th of June, and maybe we can spread that even further with the help of various people. But let's go back to Michael in Athens. Michael, you're telling us now The crunch time
Yes.
is the 5th, and then to the end of the month, 1.3 billion, and there is not enough cash. And will the creditors, right? Will the Schäuble, Lagarde people be reasonable, or will they go to the brink, and then perhaps other officials more realistic and more rational? Why don't you take it from there?
Yes. So in this negotiations, the Greek government has its red lines, okay, in the things that it won't step back from. These red lines have nothing to do with anything radical. They are the absolutely basic, reasonable stuff. You know, no more austerity, no more cuts in salaries and pensions, no more labor market deregulation. They are talking about liberalization of firing. You know,
They now call that a reform. The London Daily Telegraph, when you're stripped of your job, that's a reform, and you should roll back those reforms.
Yeah. This is what the Greek government won't accept. Things that would sink the Greek economy even deeper into recession. At least that. And we can talk about the Greek society. Now, the institutions, what we used to call the Troika. Now, let me tell you for a minute what is the difference, because many people say, what's the difference? We just named the Troika institutions, and that's what renaming is. Are we playing word games here? No, the substantial thing, the substance in this shift from Troika to institutions is that unelected, unaccountable IMF officials don't go into the offices of ministers and check their books. They don't come they are not accepted anymore in Greece, and they are not accepted in the ministries and the offices of ministers. So that's which was a process of humiliation, of political domination. It was a kind of. It was about the show. It was about a show of domination, of political domination. Anyway, the institutions, that is the European Commission, the European Central Bank, and the IMF, behind which hides, of course, the will of Schäuble. Everyone knows this. They are trying to stall and blackmail and bully. But it all comes down to the fact that the Greek government is ready to go to default. And no one wants to see that happening. It's uncharted waters, if you like. Especially because of the danger of capital flight out of the Greek banking system, which threatens to bring the whole European banking system down because of, interbanking relations, the relations between, debt relations between banks.
So we'd have chain reaction bankruptcies. I think we can sum up what you're saying. Varoufakis said last week, pensions and salaries are sacred, and they will take priority if the money runs out. I would prefer to default to the IMF rather than on salaries, said Varoufakis.
Yeah, and it's not an easy thing to default on the IMF. No one has ever done it. No one has ever managed to haircut the IMF or anything like that. But a postponement is possible anyway. But the strange thing is that we see optimism expressed by the Greek government, by Prime Minister Tsipras himself. He seems confident that the deal will be struck in time. But the picture is very confusing. Information coming in are bizarre. Contradictory statements are often made within half an hour from each other. Tsipras himself makes a statement saying a deal is very near. Schäuble comes out the same day, that was Wednesday, the day before yesterday, with an answer saying, I don't know where Tsipras' optimism stems from. Lagarde of the IMF, the same thing. I honestly have no idea if there's going to be an agreement. I don't think anyone does. I don't think anyone has any idea. The process itself has been covered by a veil of secrecy for months now. But from information coming in today, this panic on the one hand, and this attempt to take steps back from the part of the lenders gives me some optimism. So I don't think anyone, I was saying that no one knows if an agreement is going to be struck, but I think we will have big news in the following week.
Okay.
The Greek negotiating team will either make a small win if a deal comes, but a win nevertheless, or things will be driven to the extreme of a rupture. I think that both cases are good. I mean, most of the scenarios are good scenarios. Even a rupture, I think, will be freeing for people in Greece. The bad thing, the worst thing that could happen is that the Greek people become impatient and that things will be delayed even more, because this is destructive for the Greek economy and for the Greek society. But maybe the worst thing that can happen right now is another delay or a bridge agreement until September or October, which some talk about this scenario, but I don't think it's going to happen. So even a small win, I think that even a small win is going to be a big win, because it will be a rhetorical win. It's going to show people in Europe that politics can work. Politics is something that can bring you results in some time, you know.
And indeed, Schäuble and these people may be right that if they make concessions to Greece, the dams will break and Portugal will be there and others saying, hey,
Yes.
we're sick of austerity too, and you'll get a changed picture. I certainly hope so.
That's the big game right now.
Okay, so next week we'll be watching that very carefully. Michael, we want to thank you very much.
Very much.
This has been important to keep up with those situations. And what I'm wondering is, I'm looking forward to the day when Tsipras flies to Donetsk and meets with the leadership of the Donetsk People's Republic. Because maybe Greeks could use some coal or something like this.
The minister was in Russia again.
Okay. So thank you very much. We've reached the end of our time. This has been Webster Tarpley here in New York City at the Left Forum, and we'll see you again next week.